Okay, for today, just a few quick reminders about solving by elimination. We can add or subtract the same thing, in other words, equivalent things, from both sides of an equation. We can multiply both sides of an equation by the same thing, as long as that thing is not 0. And our goal is that we eliminate one variable so we have just one equation and one variable. Okay, let's just look at an example here. If we've got 7x plus 2y equals 24 and 8x plus 2y equals 30, we've got all kinds of things we're allowed to do. Suppose I add those two equations. Well, then I'm left with 15x plus 4y equals 54. Now that's perfectly valid, but it doesn't achieve my goal. Likewise, I could multiply something by the same thing on both sides. So suppose I had 7x plus 2y equals 24. I could, say, multiply both sides by 2 and end up with 14x plus 4y equals 48. But neither of these things really help me. That doesn't really help me, and that doesn't really help me. Those sorts of steps might help me in the future, but what's going to help me right now is something a little bit different. Because remember, what I want to do is eliminate one of the variables. So you might notice if I subtract the second equation from the first equation, the y's will be eliminated. What I'm going to do, which is the same thing as subtracting, is multiply the second equation by -1. And the reason why I do that is I just find that students make fewer mistakes when they do that. The top equation I'm going to keep the same. Now, when I do 7x minus 8x, that gives me -x. But here I've got 0, which was my goal. I've eliminated the y's. And here I've got -6. So if I divide by -1, I get x equals 6. Now, how do I find the y? I've got to plug back in to find it. I can use either equation. I'll use the first one. Now, be careful when you do the subtraction here. When you've got -42 and +24, if you go ahead and just subtract like you normally would, of course that won't work. So think we're going to have more negatives than positives. So I'm going to do 42 minus 24. I can see that 42 is 18, bigger than 24, so here I've got -18. Great. So my solution is 6, -9. Today you're going to have a little bit of practice with adding and subtracting equations and solving by elimination.